Thank you. Okay, we'll move into the Village Council and administrative discussion items. Tonight is a committee of the whole meeting. For those of you that are joining us for the first time, this meeting, we don't take any votes on anything. It's just an opportunity for the council to be able to agenda and discuss items that are of importance to them. If it is okay with the council, because we have so many folks that are here to speak to item B, and I seem to be missing the second page of the agenda.
Like B moved to the top?
That's a good idea. Thank you. Could I get B moved to the top, the street naming and co-designation for Larry Barfield?
So moved.
Second. Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Thank you. So at this time, we'll take the street naming for Larry Barfield. As I was mentioning just a few moments ago, thank you so much, I appreciate that. We actually have two individuals on the agenda this evening, important community members, and Mr. Barfield being one of them, a dear friend, and not just to me, but to many in our community. And if I could, I'm going to ask folks to step up to speak, but if I could, prior to that, if I could get Trace Barfield to join us at the mic, please.
Good afternoon. Madam Mayor, Madam Vice Mayor, Madam Clerk, members of the council. First and foremost, on behalf of my family, friends, my mother, Colleen Barfield, all the members of this great city of Palmetto Bay, I'd like to thank you from the bottom of my heart for your consideration, your time, and your help in regards to our humble request to have a street in Palmetto Bay named after my father, Larry Barfield, who passed away back October 15th. Our first choice for the street naming would be 82nd Avenue. We are open to other suggestions, but that is the street that we'd like between the cross streets of 160th to 136th Street. My goal and most sincere hope here today is to shed a light on who my father was by sharing a few examples of his extraordinary achievements to our community through his acts of volunteerism, contribution, charitable acts, and service, as well as his unwavering commitment to faith, family, and again, the great community and city of Palmetto Bay. It's also my great hope that should our request to have the street named after my father come to fruition, that it will not only memorialize a great man, but continue to inspire those members of our community that he so inspired throughout his amazing life and inspire future generations to come. I know my time is limited here, and there's other people that want to speak, and if I got to say all of the things that I would want to say about the amazing things that my father accomplished throughout his life, especially in commitment to Palmetto Bay, I would be here for days, so I'll try to highlight the brighter aspects.
Trace, could you do me a favor? Would you mind just removing the mic and speaking into the mic?
Sure.
Directly? Thanks. I think it would be a little bit louder.
MC. It's important to note, first and foremost, that my mother and my father lived in two homes over a span of 43 years in Palmetto Bay. They never lived in any other city. They owned and operated the local sporting goods stable known as Kings Bay Athletics on 144th Street for over 42 years. Not only employing, but inspiring and molding so many of the local youth from Palmetto Bay. The business received numerous small business awards, which was often the subject of news, both in print and television. He volunteered his time to give business master classes to the local schools, including Palmer Trinity, Southwood Middle School, Coral Reef High School, and Florida International University. He played an integral role in the merging of Palmer School and Trinity School, which unified as Palmer Trinity School here in Palmetto Bay, which he sat on the board of trustees at Palmer Trinity School for many years. He ran and operated the system that provided the uniforms to the Howard Palmetto and Perrine Corey Leagues through Kings Bay Athletics, as well as volunteered his time as a coach. My father was, needless to say, a man of great faith as well. Inspired by that faith would come some of his greatest accomplishments to the community. He started the first Boy Scout troop at St. Louis Catholic Church. He started the Festival for the Poor, an annual festival to raise money and aid the support of our local homeless community. The festival continues to happen annually and has become a flagship of charity and support amongst our community, aiding not only outward homeless community, but also the homeless community right here in Palmetto Bay. In fact, they all knew him by name, and he knew all of them by name. I can remember him coming home and saying, Clarence was out today and got him a gig over at Busy Bee Car Wash. Although fundamentally, the retreat program that ultimately would be his greatest accomplishment, not only in life but to our community, was fundamentally based on faith. That's not what I'm here to highlight today. I'm here to highlight a retreat program for men that also spread to a retreat program for women that was basically a crash course on how to be an outstanding, upstanding, responsible, contributing member to your community. And that program was the Emmaus program. This program is a retreat program that brings in men and women who are solo, have nowhere to go, as well as people having problems in their marriages, life problems, monetary problems, and transforms them. This program that he started and wrote the book on back in 1986 has become a global phenomenon. It's spread not only across this country, but also the world into Cuba, China, South America, teaching men and women to be outstanding members of their communities. You can't throw a stone in Palmetto Bay without it gracing the path of an Emmaus brother or sister who were on a different path. And now that path is a path of community, organization, responsibility, family, and they teach their kids as well as their kids. He raised countless amounts of money through different projects. He had email blasts. He would get men together and women together, recognize their talents, raise money. One example is a project that he had called Project Chill. This is one of hundreds of examples where he raised the money to fund putting commercial refrigerators in local homeless shelters right here in Palmetto Bay, all the way out to Camilla's house. That's one of hundreds of projects, but I don't have the time to tell you about so many more. The Emmaus program, like I said, has become a global phenomenon. He and my mother also organized and ran the annual Christmas caroling party that started house to house right here in Palmetto Bay. They would go each year, gather people and go house to house Christmas caroling. Once that caught on, they moved it to the Purdue Nursing Home down there on 195th. For 43 years, that Christmas caroling went on, enlightening the elderly with special needs every single year. It's just amazing. Madam Mayor, members of council, I know that there are more people that want to speak, and I thank you so much again for your consideration on this. They have a laundry list of achievements, acts of charity, service to the community, and overall commitment to the city of Palmetto Bay. Larry Barfield was my father. He was, to say the very least, a shining member of this community. I thank you all very much, and I hope to soon give you a friendly wave to each and every one of you as we pass each other on Larry Barfield Avenue. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. And just for clarification, Trace, it's 82nd Avenue.
82nd Avenue
yes.
is our hopeful.
I
Yes,
know
ma'am.
the agenda says 87th. I think we just have 87th on the mind, but it is 82nd.
We have secondary and tertiary options if need be, but yes, that's our hopeful.
We'll talk about some of those.
Okay,
in
great.
just
Thank
a
you so
minute.
much,
Thanks.
Madam Mayor.
Thanks. You did a great job, and don't go anywhere. So if I could get, I'll start with the folks that we have that are present. Could I get, and I'm terrible at seeing the names, but Frank, is it Cohen? Godwin? You'll correct me when you get here.
Gowan.
You give us your address, please.
Yes, I live at 8700 Southwest 159th Street. I've lived there since 1984. My name's Frank Gowan. I'm here to say a word about my friend Larry Barfield. Our relationship began in 1990 in the winter when I raised my hand to become the president and the commissioner of the then Kendall Broncos football program. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know how to run the program, order equipment, or do much of anything else. But because of our knowledge of Kings Bay athletics through the Howard Palmetto Corey League, I went to Larry, and we developed a relationship that lasted for decades. He mentored us through the equipment ordering process, helped us order equipment and uniforms at prices we could afford. And when we first began, there were zero funds in the bank account. We had to sign up kids to play and to cheer and pay for things that were ordered months in advance. We paid them in a timely fashion, and all was well. The second year, in 1992, we were going gangbusters with terrific registration, football players and cheerleaders, when the bottom fell out on August the 24th. Hurricane Andrew caused us to lose 80 football players and all of their equipment. We already owed Larry $20,000. We almost had enough to pay him, but we didn't. All of the programs in the South, Florida City, Richmond, Goulds, Palmetto, all folded that year, and none of the kids could play, so we agreed with the league to take all of their kids that could and play at our park for free. But we had to buy the equipment. We needed to order an additional $18,000 worth of equipment, and we had no chance of getting that money at that point. Larry insisted that we order the equipment, knowing that he probably would never be paid for it. Well, we did the season, we got through it. I like to think Larry was a good judge of character, because over the next 12 months, we raised all that money and we paid Larry in full. But nobody else would have done that. During that time, he and I spent hours in his office laughing at how to get through the next day or the next week for the Bronco program. Larry used to run early in the dark in the morning. I'm not a morning person, but I used to get up and run 3 miles just to relieve the stress, to try to figure out how I was going to get through that next day and what I was going to do at practice that night. Both my sons, Andrew and Matthew, worked at Kings Bay. My wife, Judy, worked at Kings Bay. My oldest son, Andrew, worked there through high school, during college, summer break, and as the manager of the store for many years after graduation from college, and has tremendous respect for Larry to this day. We are proud to support the naming of a street in Larry's name.
Thank you so much, Frank. The next speaker is Mr. Reboza. Thank you.
And I believe there are wipes, if anybody cares to wipe the mic in between speakers.
Yeah, thank you. When you asked me to do the invocation, I thought of Larry immediately. He was the best prayer warrior there was. So, I said, yeah. Anyway, again, I'm Fred Rebozo. Very happy to be here and speak on behalf of Larry. I actually live at 12400 Southwest 62nd Avenue. But I've known Larry. He's been my best friend for the past 20 years. But, one of the things, just what Trace reiterated was just incredible. And same way with next time, it was, it's all about Larry. But what is so interesting is we went out to dinner almost every weekend somewhere all over the city. And I don't think there was a time that somebody didn't come up to us and witness something about their children working for Kings Bay and stuff like that. And all of these kids turned out well. All went to college. Somehow, I employed a bunch of people down south and never had that kind of luck. But Larry was a wonderful mentor. And as an impact on the community, it just couldn't be more. And 42 years, probably you have, I'm sure somebody in this group has a relative that worked at Kings Bay. We could hardly duck that bullet. So many of them in 42 years, and all these kids, half a dozen at a time, just continuous. Anyway, just to witness that, I back up everything that Trace documented. It's really facts. He's just been a pillar of this community, and he just never said no to anything. If it was nonsense, of course, he'd work his way through it, but he had just an incredible way of managing and getting things done. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Reboza. Rich McCornell, I'm sorry if I'm...
No problem, it's my writing.
That's okay. I taught first grade. I should be able to figure out the handwriting at this point, but there's some wipes there too, by the way, if you are so inclined.
I trust Fred.
Okay.
I'm Rick McCormick, and I'm here with my wife, Patty. And we've been in Palmetto Bay, actually Dade County before it became Palmetto Bay, more than 30 years ago. And one of the deciding factors of us to move into our house was we met our neighbors before we signed the ink. And it's based upon that testimony witness of those neighbors is why we moved here. And Patty and I have had the pleasure of living across from the Barfields since that time we moved in. In some faith traditions, they have saints. For example, the Catholic Church has saints. And the reason for the saints is to model what it means to be a Catholic. Okay? Well, we're a village, and the question we need to decide is, who are we going to put up as models for the people in our village? We've already done some. I can think of no better model than Larry. And when I say Larry, I include Colleen also, because where you knew one, you knew the other. It's not just one of them. But there are people that are humble, people that are loving, people that are caring, people that sacrifice themselves for others. I remember vividly, Larry had a prostate cancer at one time. And there's a man that went out, and you never heard about this, but ministered to other men who had that problem. No glory, no, this is what I've done. And those are the type of people we need to model for us, to model for our young kids, to model for our young adults, and to model for ourselves. So I humbly support the naming of a road in favor of Larry Barfield to model for the rest of us. Thank you.
Thank you. When we're in here, we do this wave. Thanks, but definitely something to celebrate. And Mr. Cosio.
Good afternoon and good evening. I apologize for my appearance. I have a softball game coming up.
That's
here
okay.
after this.
Can I get you to, yeah, and the wipes are there, just letting you know.
I'm good.
Okay.
Lorenzo Cosio. I live at 8705 Southwest 150th Terrace. My wife and my family and I moved there in 2003. And soon after moving into our home, which I echo what Rick said there, part of the reason we moved into the village was because of our neighbors and the community that we have. Soon after, in 2003, we registered at St. Louis Church from Epiphany and transferred over to St. Louis. And there's when I first started getting this kind of family faith first and foremost. It's pretty simple. Rick said it perfectly. With all the stuff that's going on in this world, we need to model ourselves and our children after people that make a difference, that care about each other. It was very clear. Our Lord gave us 2 commandments, and the second one was love thy neighbor. He did it. Larry did that every single day of his life. I'm a product of that. Trace mentioned the Emmaus. It's not a coincidence that most of us in here did our Emmaus. But Larry instilled that in us. He walked that walk and gently talked that talk. So I second, I third, I fourth, I support that motion. If we can't get 82nd Avenue, put it on 87th Avenue. I'll take it. I'd be proud. Because when kids see that and say, hey, who's Larry Barfield? I guarantee you anybody's going to say, Larry Barfield was that dude. He was the guy who did everything. He started stuff. He never said no. He just was a man of the people, and he just did what our Lord asked him to do, which is love thy neighbor. So I support naming any street. 82nd Avenue would be awesome. Larry Barfield Avenue or Boulevard, whatever it is. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cosio. So I'm looking in the virtual. Yeah, you guys got it. Yeah, that's awesome. We have Mo Caldera has his hand up for this item. Mo, if you could unmute yourself and give us your address, please, and then you may speak.
9740 Southwest 146th Street. Larry Barfield for me was, you already said he was like Trey said he was a father and a loving husband. For me, he was a mentor, an older brother, a father figure, a leader. When you needed help, he was there for you. He was the person that was always willing to serve. Se conectó el audio.
Okay, thank you so much. I see Jim Loretta, you have your hand up for this item. Could you please unmute yourself and give us your address?
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Jim Loretta, 13935, 9042 Southwest 132 Lane. I had the pleasure of meeting Larry Barfield back in 1982-83. He was a fellow sojourner, so to speak. But a real quick story. It was because of Larry that the Emmaus movement took off the way it did. He and I sat down in his living room back in 1984 and put together the manual with a couple other guys. I went off to another parish, and Larry stayed at St. Louis, and the thing just went crazy. But real quickly, my wife was sick with Alzheimer's for about 7 or 8 years. And I can tell you, the last year that Susan was alive, Larry and Colleen made Sunday dinner for myself and my 4 kids, lovingly coming over. And Colleen would sit with Susan, and I'd be in the other room with Larry, just, Larry being Larry, and he was comforting a dear friend. And I can't think of a better way to represent Palmetto Bay and 82nd Avenue and have Larry Barfield be the name out there. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Director Cadaval, is there anybody else in the lobby with their hand up?
Yes, Mayor, I have Mr. Andy Hernandez with his hand raised.
Thank you. I see that now. Mr. Hernandez, if there's anyone else in the virtual lobby that wants the opportunity to speak just to this item, if you'd please raise your hand at this time. Mr. Hernandez, you can unmute yourself and give us your address, please.
Hello, thank you for this opportunity to speak on behalf of Larry Barfield and naming the street. My name's Andy Hernandez. I live at 8420 Southwest 84th Terrace. And I grew up in the Palmetto Bay area, and I remember going to Kings Bay Athletics with my parents to get my uniforms for sports and school. And but really came to know Larry at the church, at the retreat that you've been hearing about. It was at that retreat that really my life turned around and got in order, got my priorities straight. And then I was blessed to be able to continue working with Larry at the church, putting on, as part of the team, more retreats for others, kind of give back. And he taught me what is really important in life, and with service and family and our community. So it would be amazing to be able to drive down Larry Barfield Avenue one day and to leave that legacy for all of us. So thank you for the time. I yield the floor.
Thank you. And the last speaker I see in the virtual lobby is Mr. Ramon Matos. If you would unmute yourself and give us your address, please. Mr. Matos. Okay, Mr. Matos, if you're able to unmute, we'll take your comments in just a minute. So first of all, thank you all. My mom used to say that what you'd like at the end of your life is to have a great circle of friends that are able to tell the story of your life. And I know that you are just a small component of the circle that was Larry Barfield. One of the things that I remember about Larry, and I was actually just looking, I wanted to go back and text message to see what Larry had last said to me. But we all know Larry was a praying man. And about a month before he passed away, I passed by the house. You know, we were doing a lot of food drives during COVID, working with Christ Fellowship. I saw somebody with the Christ Fellowship shirt on back here. So we were doing a lot of food drives, and they had, the boxes with the produce, and myself and Councilmember Fiore would do our best to get the boxes of produce out or whatever goods Christ Fellowship was giving. And I had had a particularly busy weekend, had distributed as much as I could distribute. And come like Tuesday, I'm like, I got this one box of produce in my car. And I've got to figure out what to do with it. I made it a practice not to keep anything that I got from Christ Fellowship. So I was driving down 82nd Avenue, and something just said, you know what, I'm going to stop by Larry's. I know he doesn't need this produce, but I'm going to just pull in, and it'll be my reason to say hello, right? Because we kept saying we were going to have that evening beverage, right? But we were in the middle of COVID, and it just didn't work out. So I pull in, knock on the door. Larry comes out. He's telling me about the number of miles he had put in on his bike. And for those of you that aren't aware, he passed actually doing what he loved so much, which was biking and, of course, praying, as you all point out. And Larry had. Years ago when I met Larry, and it's through this process, I met him in 2012 when I came into Kings Bay Athletics, although I know someone mentioned a lot of good kids came out of Kings Bay Athletics. Well, maybe I wasn't one of them. But I was, I frequented Kings Bay Athletics through my young years, and then when my daughter was playing sports as well. And one of the things I remember Larry saying to me almost every time we spoke is to live your life doing for others and don't expect anything in return. It's super basic, right? It's what we teach our kids. And so when I showed up at the house that day, and I opened the trunk and I'm like, Larry, I have this produce. I feel kind of silly standing here with it, but can you take it, or maybe you know somebody? And he told me, remember what I said? I've never asked you for anything. And I said, I know you didn't ask. That's why I stopped by. So that's the way he lived his life, was just helping people, but not asking for anything in return. And, whether you're in his close circle or whether you're seated up here, that's a pretty big deal, right? There's not a lot of folks, especially in politics, that you get that will support you emotionally and prayerfully and celebrate your success, but never ask you for anything in return. I bring the item. I wanted just to put it out there for discussion to my colleagues. I know some of my colleagues have had interaction with Larry as well, and hopefully I will be bringing an item on April 5th. And I did check with the Director of Public Works or Public Services, and we are good for a naming 82nd Avenue from 136th Street to 160th Street. And it'll put it right there, all at that circle, which is just around the corner from your home. So that should not be an issue. So with that, I open it up for discussion. Councilmember Fiore?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I used to go into Kings Bay Athletics because my daughter was a soccer player for Coral Reef High School. And then when I needed T-shirts for my first campaign back in 2010, and I didn't have a lot then, I happened to meet Larry in the store. I didn't even know they did the T-shirts either. So he was kind enough to run in-kind contribution to supply that. And I would talk to Larry through the years, but especially in the early days when I first ran. One of the most humblest and kindest souls that I've met in my time here in South Florida. And I don't know if people realize, I think it was him and Peter England also that started the Friday morning prayer circle breakfast over at St. Louis Church. And that was a great thing. And when I had moments and difficult moments years after that, I actually would, if I would see Larry, he would call me or somebody would call me and I would go over there. And it was, would lift your spirits and be inspirational. So I'm what I'm just happy about is that most of this 82nd Avenue will be in District 1. So that's, I'll get to see Larry's name quite a bit between 136 and 152 Street. So I look forward to supporting this item, Madam Mayor, when it comes up. Thank you, and thank you all for being here on his behalf this evening.
Grace, you can do it. It's all right. Let's go. Vice Mayor?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Your father's and your friend's store provided a safe place for me to go and ask stupid questions when my children were young. And we truly enjoyed going up to the store and getting them what they needed at the last minute or what they had hoped to achieve in sports. And what really strikes me is your need to tell his story. There's a song in Hamilton about who lives, who dies, who tells her story. And it's important that we carry that forward. And as you said exactly, we need to make sure that we show that we hold up to our community those people who provide for our community and who take care of others and don't expect in return. And it is such a pleasure to hear you tell his story tonight and to support it.
Councilmember Cody?
Thank you. I am going to be happy to support the proposal when you bring it forward. As the father of 3 boys who grew up here in Palmetto Bay and a daughter, we also were all the time in there for Little League and different other sports activities or just to get team hats. My wife was a big sports fan. I mean, I used to kid her that between football season starting and then going into baseball season and then hockey, that I had about 3 weeks where I had her attention. And she was, other than that, she was sports obsessed. But she was also a frequent and constant customer of Kings Bay. And so I'm looking forward to supporting this when we bring this forward, Madam Mayor.
Councilwoman Matson?
Yes, I'm reading a book right now from my book club called Fresh Water for Flowers. I don't know if you've heard of it, but one of the main points of the book that I thought about when I was hearing the testimony that you all provided was that you can tell the quality of a person's character by the people who show up to remember him. And I appreciate all your comments. He sounds like a wonderful person. I probably met him, of course, going over to the store with my children for their sports equipment. And I remember that atmosphere over there being a wonderful place, very supportive. So yes, I'm absolutely willing to support this item.
Thank you. Okay, is there any other discussion on this item? Okay, and you're all more than welcome to stay. And we'll look forward to seeing you back, hopefully in person or virtually, on April 5th. Did I get that? April 5th, day after Easter. Larry would like that. Thank you.